Okay. Hello guys, this is CS1O1 podcast. Today we have with us Professor Maria Francis.
Okay.
Okay,
Fine.
okay same. She's an assistant professor at IIT Hyderabad and she did her PhD from IISc Bangalore and she went on to further do her postdoc from Linz, Austria. So, hello ma'am, welcome
Hi.
again.
Yeah, welcome. Thank you.
So, let's start first. Can you tell us about yourself and your journey towards your PhD? What got you interested in cryptography and algebra?
Okay. So I guess, there was never a like, oh yeah, this is what I want to do moment sort of thing. I was never, you never really know for sure. Uh, but I guess right when I was in school, around 11th and 12th, so I always kind of liked the exactness that comes with, areas of mathematics that involve like permutations and
Yes,
combinations, those counting techniques. So those kind of things I always liked, whereas the calculus and the continuous math always felt very messy to me. But I didn't really understand that you can choose one or the other. For me, mathematics was like you had to like all of it, sort of thing. And I don't know. So I was someone. I think I like the whole exactness of things in general. Always have. I remember having telling my father that I want to be an engineer, and he was very surprised because he said I have no intuition whatsoever for natural phenomena. I've never really got. He's tried explaining those laws of motion physics things that you have in the 11th standard, and he always found me like I never really got things because I've never observed natural phenomena, like how the tension in a wire, and for those things look natural to him, it never hit me. So he was like, maybe I should go for a chartered accountancy or something, which is he used to tell me is like man-made rules, mathematics rules, and you work on
yes,
that. So those kind of things he thought was better for me, but that's probably because he didn't know computer science, and computer science is very little natural phenomenon. So luckily for me, there is a discipline in engineering that didn't have that much, didn't have any natural phenomenon sort of. So I kind of think I always liked the discrete structures, discrete mathematics, as opposed to, but I never really thought you can work in that area as such, because when you learn discrete structures, this algebra part is just a very small module in the whole thing. So you don't feel like you can, it's like you're picking something very, very specific and you say want to work on it. So you really don't know whether those things actually can be done. But somewhere down the line, during my undergraduate and degree and all that, I met people like, so there are a few professors in our college who were who were doing theoretical computer science, who were actually doing good. I mean, they were, they kind of made me feel interested to work in something broadly, like also compilers. I mean, something like I felt like I should be in something to do with research, because they seemed to be very excited about it. So there were people like Murli Krishna and all, who were there by choice, sort of, because they did very well in their PhDs, for example, and they could have gotten in anywhere, but they were continuing to be there because they had full control of what they can do, and they kind of liked that. So I found that very, very the whole way of their thinking, the way they were going about with their careers, very inspiring and also very intellectually stimulating, sort of thing. But that didn't make me decide that I want to be in research or academia or anything. It kind of just I kind of respected those people, or that I felt like this is what I want to be somewhere in the back of my mind. But it wasn't something that I went into it very this thing. But then I joined. I don't know if I can say I was part of the industry, because I was there only for like 2.5 years after my engineering. And initially it was fun. It felt like, oh yeah, this is where I see myself, 10 years down the line. But then after a while, the challenges there didn't feel so much, intellectually.
yes,
I mean, it's not that they don't do good work, they do, but they're too big a team. You're driven by so many other factors. There are architects, sort of thing, but they're like so far away in the whole chain of that whole hierarchy. So I didn't kind of and the whole discussions more often than not ended up being about which apartment to buy, which car to buy. And people, I'm not saying it's not that black and white. I understand
yes,
the whole. It is not about, oh yeah, we give up money to do research or something. It's not that simple. I realize I'm not trying to say that, but somewhere down the line, I kind of yearn back to conversations that people typically shared among or among people who I'd met in college. And I longed for that somewhere in the back of my mind. And that's kind of when I decided that I wanted to do something that would be intellectually something that will help me grow, and also it should be somewhere I have a control on, where I can own things that I do. And being a subject matter expert is not about which version had which change in the code or sort of something. And some people were very good at that. They could say, oh yeah, this version, we did that change. And people are respected for that. Oh yeah, you just go to him, he knows every change that was made in that. And I was like, okay, fine, that's not what I want to do in life, sort of thing. But probably I was way too young anyway, and very few years there anyway. So I kind of decided that I wanted to do research, but again, it was something like broadly theoretical computer science sort of thing, or even compilers, things that I liked in college, but I didn't really know if I could. I was not very definite on what I wanted. But then I joined IIC, and then I met so we were supposed to meet potential supervisors, and my PhD guide is one of the first people I met, and he kind of asked me what I like, and he kind of I told him I like the exactness of things. So I kind of find these continuous math messy, and I also find people bringing out geometric proofs, for example, for something that doesn't feel right to me. I mean, I feel like geometric proofs give an intuition, but they don't feel a proof enough for me. I always find it I find a proof more satisfying if I can draw if I feel like I've done an algebra, a constructive proof with step by step instead of a geometric proof, because it feels like I've covered everything and it's there, and it's proved.
Most of the people are like, okay, I have to visualize this to understand, okay, this is happening.
Yeah, but for me, it's always been the other side. Yeah, people say visualize. I've been very bad with that. And so he was telling me about, work like, he was telling me how this whole discrete structures itself can be, the things that I like in discrete structures can be made into a research area. And I was like, wow, okay, this is something I can do, then I don't mind. But I was never thinking about whether, it will get me a job or not. And I kind of romanticized, I think, the whole idea of, you should just do what you love, and then you will get there. And I think underlying idea is still, I would still say that that's what you should be doing. But somewhere down my PhD, I did feel like, especially when you're in a computer science department and when you're in a machine learning lab where everybody's publishing like every 3 months, and everybody's doing so much of this kind of things, you're in a much slower field sort of. And then you do feel like, is it viable? You can take the door. So those kind of questions do come up, and that's probably why. In a way, cryptography was in a way a nice solace to me, because it felt like you see some applications, and you also work in theory, and you do some sort of you do a mix of both. But that's kind of been my journey. But it is not like, it was never very clear. So even when I joined ISC, I was okay to do compilers. I was okay to do. It was always like I wanted to do something that I can own, and I can also, I wouldn't turn senile, and I had to I can always keep thinking, and that whole PhD experience, I would say, was that it helped me kind of, make sure that I changed the way I was thinking things. It just definitely, that kind of maturity is what I was looking for, and that's what I got, and that was what I did, like my experience with PhD and. My journey
it's
so
really
far.
nice that you are doing something you love.
It's not that simple, as I was saying. There are times when you feel like, no, I probably, romanticize this whole idea. It is not really that much fun, and it's just the most convenient thing that I did, the most comfortable thing I did or something. You do go through your ups and downs. That's also part of it. But somewhere, you kind of, it kind of fits, and then you're happy.
Okay. So, you talked about your research, so can you give us a brief description about your research, what you are working on?
So the thing with algebra is it's very difficult for me to explain it without a blackboard or so that's why I prepared some slides.
You can say.
But it's probably not the most ideal way either, but I'll try and give an overall some sort of an picture. So what I primarily work in, or what my PhD was in, is is what is called computational algebra. So the whole field is like an intersection between algebra and computer science. So the idea is you have different algebraic methods, but you want to know if they can be described algorithmically. You have a lot of algebraic properties that are very useful within other areas, like you can solve using these algebraic properties, different things, but you don't really know how to solve it over a computer. You don't really have an algorithm for it. And that's what computational algebra looks at, whether we can develop algorithms. And something very simple to begin with is linear equations over a field. Now, if you don't know what a field is, you just have to think of a set where you're allowed to do division, something like rational numbers, real numbers, or complex numbers, but not integers, for example. So integers, you can't do division there because you're not necessarily assured an integer. So we're all familiar with this linear equation.
Yes.
So as long as your power is 1 for the variables, you are happy. You know how to solve them in a way. So you basically transform it into a matrix, right? And then you use Gaussian elimination. So as you can see, when you do these kind of things, you're actually doing division. And basically what you're doing, why do you call it elimination? Because you're eliminating variables here. Yeah, exactly. So here you're basically eliminating y and z, and here you're eliminating x and z. You're eliminating x and y, and you get a solution to this. So, and this is there are efficient ways of doing it, what you call polynomially efficient ways of doing this. Now, but when we go into more difficult problems, so there are as we go into more abstract things inside algebra, you'll see that it's not very easy to come up with algorithms. So it's not always, just because a mathematician has proved some result, to actually get something, running on a computer is a different story altogether, and running on something and getting something efficient is even harder. So saying division. So for example, if you look at the same linear equations, we're not going into powers more than 1 for the variables, but now you are saying I can only work on integers. You're not doing any more division.
Yes.
You're not allowed to do any more division. Now you want to solve. So that would involve now, that would involve, for example, computing this matrix H, which is called the Hermite normal form. And then you can conclude something about the solution. So there's this result that helps you conclude about the solution. So you do have an algorithm, and it is actually possible to do these things efficiently. There is a polynomial time algorithm to compute the HNF, the Hermite normal form. But it isn't as simple as Gaussian elimination.
Yes.
And also, I think it took about 128 years for people to come up with a polynomial time algorithm for HNF. So it's not obvious. So as you can see that, things have already started getting complicated, even in the linear case. So just because I moved from, I've started restricting my set. I've said you can't do division, you're now working with integers, and then things all of a sudden become complicated. So that is the whole problem. So coming up with an algorithm for all kinds of algebraic properties, this is where the issues start popping up. And also now you see, for example, in discrete mathematics, why we learned, rings and fields, because, things get simpler over fields and things get difficult over rings. Integer is actually a ring. It's not a field. So that's I'm trying to say is there are reasons for these abstractions, and these abstractions are not something we just throw on the board out there. There's a reason for these things. And now what I look at, or in my research, is nonlinear equations. Okay, so equations where your powers are no longer 1. Okay, so multiple variables, n variables with all kinds of powers. So things have started becoming complicated. In fact, even over fields, even when you allow for division, even when you look at rational numbers or real numbers, even then things are not that easy, and you have what is called Grobner basis. So it's this black box that I will say that helps you solve a nonlinear equation over fields, over reals, complex numbers, or rationals. And it kind of tries to do what Gaussian elimination does for linear case in the nonlinear case. And now the question I asked in my PhD is, what happens for these things when you restrict it to integers? So just like in the linear case where we restricted over integers, I should probably use a pointer. So in the linear case, restricting it over integers made things complicated. So what happens when you do this over a nonlinear case? So this is primarily my research focus, and you will soon see that this has applications in cryptography, because things becoming harder is not always a bad thing. For example, in crypto, that would mean
It
it's
is always
difficult for
better.
yeah, it's always better, because you can always say, oh, this, for adversary to find a solution also is going to be very hard, because there aren't anything. So
Yes.
it's a very, yeah. So that's where, this whole lattice-based crypto comes in. You work over integers there. And there are these, hard problems that are known there, and you need to build crypto systems based on that. So we'll come to that. But yeah, this is kind of how this is one where I work. And so just to see what Grosvenor basis is, so it does pretty much what Gaussian elimination does in the nonlinear case. So just to give an example, as you can see here, there is a sort of elimination happening.
Yes.
So here in the first equation, there are only x variables. In the first three equations, there are only x and y variables. And then there are the remaining variables as well. So you're kind of doing an elimination, just like, you're working with Gaussian elimination. And where do you work? Where do you need all this? Wherever you can express, your things as nonlinear equations. So, for example, in cryptography, yes, in robotics, or in control theory, where even in a lot of aerospace applications. So wherever you end up, having to describe your system as, system of linear equations with a lot of unknowns, but they're not necessarily linear. You have, things that don't work linearly. Then you have to use Grosvenor basis.
Ma'am, can you give any examples of real life examples of using this Grosvenor basis in robotics, control theory, or any?
So in control theory, what happens? So in control theory, actually you have you don't have integers, but you have polynomials as coefficients. So it gets even worse in control theory. So you have parameters that go into this systems as your coefficients. And in robotics, for example, movements of hands and things like that can be described as non-linear system of equations. So these are typically where you see. And cryptanalysis, you end up describing all the cases that have to succeed as a system of equations. And that's, again, a place where you see a lot of nonlinear equations. But there it is typically confined over integers.
Okay.
So wherever you can describe, right. Yeah, so I'll probably, so this is kind of like a summary sort of thing. So this whole Grosvenor basis over fields is also not that, even over fields, it's very, very difficult to do. So it's an X-space complete problem. So it's not very efficient. But you have what is called signature-based techniques, which is a very, very important result in this area. And I also look at that, how to do signature-based techniques for integers. And there are also other things in computational algebra. So it's not just these kind of things that I told you about. There are, how to do fast multiplication of integer matrices. So that's another thing. So basically, it's a mix of linear algebra, algorithms, and algebra. Okay, and so to move on to cryptography. So as I was saying, always things being hard is not so bad. And that is where you have this lattice-based cryptography. And why is it suddenly been so important is because of its ability to resist quantum attacks. So quantum computers are no longer an if.
Yes.
It's just about when, right? When it's going to come up. And we believe that a lot of these traditional crypto systems like RSA will break when you have quantum computers, because the RSA relies on it somewhere relies on the factoring problem, how to find the prime factorization of a very large number. Okay, typically the product of two very large prime numbers. So if you have an efficient way, a polynomial time algorithm to compute the prime factorization of a number, then RSA, you can break RSA. And we believe that will be easy over quantum computers. So that would mean all the things that we do currently over the internet, the banking transactions, all of this will just will all become insecure. Attackers, it is all vulnerable to attacks. So this is why there has been a very active area of research and also lots of competitions put forward by standardization organizations like the NIST, the organization in the US, to come up with standards before this quantum computers come into picture. So, and a lot of entries are there, a lot of different viable options are being explored, and one very prominent one is lattice-based cryptography. And so lattices are like this, they look like this, okay? So they're like an infinite grid. And basically they are discrete points in space, okay? And there are these hard computational lattice problems that we call SVP, finding the shortest vector in the lattice, finding the closest vector in the lattice. And the beauty of this is, it's not enough to find a hard problem for crypto, actually, because you need it to be easy for the person in one direction, right? For the person who does it, it should be easy. It's only for the dishonest, it's the malicious people, it should be difficult, yes. Right? For the honest parties, there should be what is called a trap door. There should be one way to solve it easily, and that should be kept secret. So that way, this lattice-based cryptography is very, very ideal. Why? Because if you have what is called a short basis for this lattice, if you can come up with something which is as orthogonal as possible, as perpendicular as possible, then perpendicular would probably be two-dimensional, yes. But just to give an idea, then a lot of these things become easy to do. So that's the trapdoor. The trapdoor is, the short basis, which is not very easy to compute. And if you have a bad basis, then these problems become hard to do. So you don't just have things which are hard, but you also have a trapdoor, a way to get around it as well.
So we can say you are kind of a savior for future internet.
Yeah. In fact, that's the thing. In fact, people are exploring it very seriously, because this LWE problem is it's a problem associated with this lattice-based cryptography. And we can build a lot of crypto systems with this. And in fact, it's been integrated with the Chrome browser's Canary version. So people have actually started deploying it and trying it out. They're getting ready for the quantum computers. So people are trying it out. So people recognize that this is one of the better options out there. And in fact, this learning with errors problem is so closely related to machine learning. It is associated with what is called the learning parity with noise. It's a learning problem in machine learning, the LPN problem, and this is kind of a modified version of that, the learning with errors problem. So it is basically you're looking at a linear system of equations, but you're adding some noise to it, and you can model this as a closest vector problem over a lattice. So this is the very famous. In fact, it gave this Oded Regev his Gödel Prize in 2005 and created a revolution in lattice-based cryptography. A lot of things are based out of this LWE problem. It's also an example of machine learning, contributing to crypto. So it's a big deal, because a lot of people are now working in it, and a lot of research possibilities here. And in fact, what is now being used is not LWE, but what is called ring LWE, where they replace this matrix A with a polynomial representation. And why use polynomials? Because they have an almost linear representation, whereas matrices are quadratic, and therefore it's slower. So ring LWE is how you bring down that quadratic overhead. So you see how algebra is so useful. You end up using it in different places. So that's what I wanted to show again with this problem, yes. And also how this is one of the important cryptographic primitives in lattice-based cryptography, and everybody is now talking about this. And as I was saying, it's already integrated with Chrome browser's Canary version. Yeah, this is a totally different thing. I don't know if I should start. This is not lattice-based cryptography. This was just to give an example of another kind of work that I also look at, another research direction. And it's also nice because you see something in cryptography which is not about, keeping something, yes. secret. we're always thinking about cryptography as, how to hide your message,
Yes.
how to scramble it and things like that. And this is one application that I just put up here on the slide, just to show you that you can do other things with
Yes.
cryptography. So zero knowledge proofs is a big deal these days, especially over blockchains and all that. Because what is zero knowledge proofs? It's basically you to end up just proving to another person. So this is an interaction typically, and I can convince you, Happy, that I know something without really revealing it. So without really revealing the details, but you will end up after the interaction,
Yes.
you're convinced that I know this, I know the answer to something, but I don't really tell you the answer. So that's very useful in many places actually. And one thing that I work in is, for example, how to prove to someone that you are a valid person without really revealing your identity details. So for example, you have the typical characters
Yes,
in
Alice
cryptography,
and Bob.
Alice, Bob, yes. And now you have Carol, who's not an evil person. He is honest, he's trusted, but he's what you call curious. That is, she might, interact with Bob, and if she gets some information out of that, she might use it. But she's not going to be, malicious. She's not going to inject things, and she's not the typical adversary. But she's curious. She wouldn't mind getting your information and knowing who you are, but not really going to inject messages into the channel, not to do anything actively. So, but Carol is trusted in the sense that she's like an Aadhaar agency, for example, that she can authenticate your identity.
Yes.
Okay. So let's say Alice wants to be authenticated. So she goes to Carol and she asks for an identity certificate, and Carol verifies all the details of Alice, and she says, okay, fine, you're authenticated. You're authenticated. You are a valid person. And then she signs on something which is basically what's called a blind signature, which kind of hides a lot of things. So Carol doesn't really realize what she signed, but she can commit to it, sort of. So the idea is, from that signature, Alice will generate a zero knowledge proof, okay? A proof that she shows to Bob, and then Bob gets convinced that Alice is a valid person, but nothing else. Validated by Carol, but no other details. And the beauty is, Bob cannot use this proof, show it to Carol. That is, even if Bob and Carol, they get together and they discuss, they cannot really know which Carol was the one that produced this corresponding proof. So which Alice is the one who showed that proof. So Carol would have many requests from many Alices, so she will not be able to Bob will show her this proof and say, do you know who this person is? And Carol is like, it's one of those people I authenticated, but I have no idea who it is. So that's why it's called anonymous. But at the same time, Bob is convinced that Alice is a valid person, and she's been validated by Carol. This is extremely useful in scenarios where you want people to be authenticated, but at the same time you want to remain anonymous because they value their privacy, or even in situations like IoT devices, which needs to be again registered, but you don't want more details to come out at every time they interact with somebody. So it's just put here as one of the things that I work in, but more importantly, just to show how crypto is not just all about hiding messages and signing messages and things like, or detecting tampering. So there are other things as well that you can do with crypto.
The security of IoT devices are main problems, so I think it'll be solving these problems also.
It's more than it's a privacy issues that you can look at. Security, broadly in the security umbrella. Yes. So these are, this is probably something, again, I don't know if I want to continue, but so there's a lot of math that I showed on the slides. I know that kind of scares people. It makes people feel like, oh God. But yes, it is a slight learning curve to pick up these things. But then there is no fun if something is very easy, right? But it doesn't mean that you have to know everything either. So it's like a little of everything, sort of. So you need to know things, and the more you know, things become easier to pick up. And the beauty of all lattice-based cryptography, ring LW, is that it picks from a lot of areas. So for example, if you were one of those people who did math, who loved math in 11th and 12th, and then you became an engineer because your parents told you to, because the whole world tells you to, but you still want to do math, and then you want to do something that's kind of computer science related, then this is like an ideal field. And if you like I do, things which are very exact and concrete and nicely tied up results and proofs, then this is just a small slightly steep learning curve, but once you're there, things become very easy. So yeah, there's an intersection of a lot of areas, from linear algebra to algebra, number theory, a little bit of elliptic curves, in integer lattices, of course, in cryptography and complexity theory, and there's a little bit of algebraic number theory as well.
So if math enthusiasts just want to jump in, so do you want to suggest some start point?
Okay, like resources, right?
Yes.
Right. Yeah, so there are these resources which are not in any way complete, but yeah, there are, because cryptography is again a very, very happening area. There's lots of resources for crypto. So there are these basic lectures from Dan Bonnet that are there on Coursera. There's Christoph Parr's lectures. Arvind Narayan is somebody whose lectures are related to Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. There's a lot of interest in crypto from Israel. So there's a lot of this winter school lectures from Bar Ilan, which are also I highly recommend. Then there's the Simons Institute programs. A lot of these cryptographers are very young, and they're very enthusiastic about putting up their lecture notes online. So they're very so you get to study a lot of these things in a very mathematically structured way from these lecture notes. So a few of these people I've put up here. There are also blogs like Schneider on Security is a very famous blog. Matthew Green is also a John Hopkins professor who writes very accessible blogs on crypto. Standard textbooks are the Katz and Lindell, which is a modern take on cryptography. It's the whole process that kind of started with all these Turing Award winners like Shafi Goldwasser and Silvio Micali and Manuel Blum students. So they were all there trying to build cryptography into a more rigorous discipline. And it started from there. And Katz and Lindell is kind of a textbook that captures that very well. So it shows it's a very, very good textbook. And it shows that how, you end up making this whole cryptography into because it does build on assumptions.
Yes.
So cryptography is only as hard as assumptions. As soon as your factoring assumption, for example, breaks, boom, everything breaks. In fact, the whole idea of one-way functions is what the entire crypto is built on. So it feels a little. There are a lot of skeptics for crypto as well. For example, there are mathematicians like Neil Koblitz, who works a lot in crypto, but who also wrote that crypto is not really an exact science sort of thing because of all these conjectures. So this whole process of trying to get a discipline out of it, because we do need it to work, it is the need of the hour, that is reflected in these textbooks and these lecture notes. So it's a youngish field, and it's progressing, but it's a very important area because security needs, and the idea is one way of dealing with this discipline is keep attacking, and if nobody is able to attack, then it's secure.
Yes.
But that does not really give you a lot of confidence, right? You don't want to say, oh yeah, mine is a good crypto system because people have tried attacking it for the last 10 years and nothing has happened. Instead, can we build it more rigorously and give a more rigorous proof of security? So that's what people have been trying to do. And these lecture notes, these textbooks are a reflection of that.
Okay. So do you have any more slides, or should we pick up questions?
All right. I just had one more slide, which was basically about opportunities.
This is important.
So I kind of, but I think there are other people who are going to be there on this podcast who will explain it better, I'm sure. But there are lots of, everybody works in crypto. So all these research labs, for example, have got very good cryptography teams. In fact, this anonymous credentials that I was talking about, the people who came up with this have either started their own companies or they work with Microsoft Research, the main people who are there. And all these lattice-based crypto, there are very good people who work in IBM Research, and even Google Research works with all these lattice-based crypto things. And in fact, the engineering teams of these companies also invest a lot in crypto. The UProbe team, the IDMX teams are all teams not in the research lab, but in their R&D division, and they also have very good crypto teams. Salesforce has a crypto team called Shield, which looks at how to, because there is this whole idea that deterministic encryption is not very safe. You need to have probabilistic encryption. That is basically when you encrypt the same message twice, it should not give the same ciphertext. It should not always encode into the same thing. And that's considered one of the basic requirements these days. But that becomes a problem when you want to filter through your databases, when you want to do a filtering of databases. So Salesforce Shield kinds of looks at a compromise. What can be done about that? Then there's the Amazon's AWS team, which has got a very good crypto team. Chainterp and Algorand are blockchain startups. Algorand is one very, very it's a very happening startup. Because it was started by Silvio Micali, who is a Turing Award winner, and he is trying to get an alternative to proof of work over blockchain. So this blockchain, over for bitcoins and over blockchains, there is this proof of work. People have to they mine coins by doing this very computationally intensive puzzles. That's how things get onto the Bitcoin or into a blockchain. And that's kind of becoming very, very expensive to do. And that's making the whole idea of having blockchains was to make it as decentralized as possible, not to have power with a single central bank, not to have power with a single authority. And now what is happening with things becoming so computationally intensive is that now the power is with a few people who have an ability to do this complicated computation, more than complicated, resource-intensive tasks. And Algorand tries to explore whether we can have a different mechanism, what is called the proof of stake protocol. And they're coming up with more scalable, more secure consensus protocols. And it's becoming a big deal these days. So there's a lot of talk around this Algorand. And then there's Visa Research, which has got a very good crypto team that works on multi-party computation. CipherTrace's blockchain analytics, Facebook and Qualcomm also have very good crypto team. So there's a lot of opportunities, and probably not typically accessible to a fresher. But if you have the specialized knowledge in crypto, you're a PhD or at least a master's in, then these are places that you can always look at.
Ma'am, I like the idea about this probabilistic computing. If only Germans thought, then Alan Turing wouldn't have been breaking this.
Yeah, yeah, right. You mean the
Yes.
Enigma, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So Enigma and all that is something that makes people interested
Yes.
in cryptography. The whole idea of you could, right. But Enigma would have not worked now because, these rotor devices are deterministic, and yes, they don't, but they are I'm sure. But if Turing was alive today, he would have found something better.
Yes.
that would have withstood even now.
Okay, so let's pick up some questions.
Yes, I should probably stop talking. And I get the questions. Yes.
Okay, so these are general questions which are asked from public. So what is exciting about algebra and cryptography compared to other areas of research like combinatorics, complexity theory, and machine learning?
No, I wouldn't say it's all about your temperament, sort of. So everything is exciting, but I'm saying, what I'm trying to say is, if you're not interested in, say, machine learning, just don't do it because you think that's the only way people can do something exciting or you can get a job after that. That's not the case. You have to, if you have a temperament for this kind of thing, if you like this kind of thing, you should just go ahead and do it. And I'm just saying that these things will fall in place.
Okay.
I'm sure combinatorics and machine learning and all of those things are as exciting. But the idea is to go deep into whatever you're doing and make sure you actually don't. You just dig deep, be patient, and then you'll just enjoy what it is and whatever it might be. But just don't do something because you've heard it's good or because you're going to impress the aunt who comes and asks you, "Oh yeah, you're working in Facebook as an machine learning scientist. Wow, that must earn you a lot." That's not why you should be doing. That was probably why you did engineering in the first place. But that's kind of a decision that you make probably when you are young. You have your parents influencing you. You have your next door aunt or uncle who you don't want to say, "I'm doing something which is not engineering, because they're going to think, oh, okay, you're not that great in studies or whatever. I mean, people do come to, but now
Yes.
you've reached a point where those are not the reasons why you should be doing things, and you make those informed decisions. So because it does not matter at the end of the day, you realize there are opportunities, you're not making a big sacrifice. That's all that I'm trying to say. But yeah, you keep digging deep, sort of thing, and you get to wherever you want to.
Okay. So, ma'am, as we talked about results, so can you tell us about some of the most impactful work in last century in your field of research? Like, is there something favorite you got interested?
So I did Grosvenor bases. So I'll say, I mean, everybody makes fun of me about this because everybody's like, oh yeah, your Grosvenor bases and your book. This is something that ISC, everybody would say this. But yeah, I like Grosvenor bases, and I'm amazed by how simple such a technique is and how powerful it is. But that's just because I worked, and I'm sure if I'd spent time. But this learning with errors is very interesting. It's got this right mix of probability, I mean, number theory, and it's amazing. It's nice to see how powerful it can be, and how these things can really do, I mean, a lot of things. So this very, so it's like algebraic number theorist again would not have expected this kind of an impact. So it's one of those things like getting corrupted by, in Hardy's language, things that were considered very pure math and will not have any applications, and they wanted it to be that way. That's how they kept purity. And you see that those things actually have been used, and they've been used to build crypto systems. It's nice to see that. Those are also interesting things. I would say lattice-based cryptography and its development by Regev's work is one of the most exciting things in cryptography that I've seen.
So, ma'am, I mean, usually there are some of the things in every field, like it frustrates. Is there anything boring in your field, or everything is interesting?
Boring? Oh yeah, everything is everything is boring. That's the thing. So the thing is, when you get into something, that whole excitement thing goes over. I mean, it has to get boring to actually get to a result. You can't always have this. That's always the case. That's it. So there's always a time when you're actually going into the topic when you're like nothing's clear, and then you have to do a lot of reading to actually get to a point where you are an expert or you understand it well. That's probably the boring part. But then you get into this aha moment sort of thing, and you're like, oh yeah, these things have all come in place, and I've actually found something. That just beats all the boring parts before. So that makes it very, and you also own it. So that's another thing. You've got this result, and you're like, this is just completely mine. It's not that also is a very nice feeling.
Okay, so also there are a lot of buzzwords around quantum computers and them breaking the current encryption. Can you please?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. Can you please
explain about this?
Right. So I kind of think I did that with the slides, and I'm sure. So I don't. I mean, yeah. So quantum computers and its impact. I think you should have a podcast with MVP.
Okay.
And it will be definitely a fun watch. So you should invite him next, and he will talk about quantum cryptography, what he thinks about how quantum computers are going to change the world. But we want it to happen because we work with post-quantum, and we want quantum computers to come there, and because it opens up new research and new problems to tackle. So it's interesting.
Okay, and can you give any example of other fields which are combined with combinatorial crypto or algebra they use? Like, I mean, if there are other fields in nanotech or biology, are they using this?
Okay. With respect to biology, and I don't know if we use a similar technique. Well, as I was saying, machine learning is now becoming very linked to security. That's more a buzzword than anything else. I can't think of anything from biology but nothing comes to my mind right now.
Okay.
I don't know.
And if someone from audience wants to jump into cryptography, so okay, this one is also covered.
If somebody in the audience wants to ask a question, no.
No, that was like more of references, etc.
Right. Yeah. I kind of covered that in the slide. Yeah, but there are references you just have to search online. But yeah, just probably stay away from those 5-minute video explaining
Yes.
what something is. I think we have to go beyond those kind of things. Yeah, it probably is time to go into more details.
Yes. So I think most of the questions you covered from slides.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, probably.
Let's take from some
Second.
Slido or online. We have any questions? Okay, just a second. I mean, most of the questions are seen there, so you have answered everything from your
Okay.
slides. I mean, you went into a brief that was
Yeah,
quite
I kind of
interesting.
went. Yeah. Okay. So I guess it's done then.
Yes. So
So
thanks,
yeah.
ma'am, coming for the
Sure.
talk. It was nice talking to you.
Okay. I hope it was not too much of a monologue, but yeah,
No,
let's. Okay.
I
Thank you.
enjoyed it. So, hi guys, we are outreach at the rate CSE IITH. You can join us or contact us from Twitter or LinkedIn. We have our link in the description. And please join us for next talks. We'll be coming with better talk, another in the new fields. So, thanks.
Okay. Thank
Thanks,
you.
man.
Thank you.